Welcome to another episode of Double J's List. If you can get a chance, please hit the like and subscribe buttons. I'd really appreciate it and it would help me out. Today, we're going to talk about the 4 things that I like and the 7 things that I dislike about this 2020 Jeep Cherokee Latitude Plus. So unfortunately, the Tiguan had a collision with a deer. Good news is that the deer seemed okay. It got up and ran away. I stopped. It continued going and it ran into the fender and headlight area of the Tiguan, and it caused about $5,000 of damage. So I've had this Jeep Cherokee for almost a week, and I've got a few things that I want to list off that I like and I dislike about it. The first thing that I actually like, number 1, is the LED headlights. They actually produce really good light. They have very nice high beams also. They work extremely well. It's something that Jeep, quite frankly, got quite right on this. Now, this Altitude Plus is one of the lower trim levels. I believe the Altitude is the lowest trim level, so this is the Plus, which gets a few little things like power seat and I think heated mirrors or something like that. Not a whole lot of options on this one. So yes, the headlights are really good, especially for a really low trim level like this. I believe that every Cherokee got these LED headlights. The number 2 thing that I like about this Jeep is that it is kind of rugged feeling compared to other 2-row crossovers in this class. It feels almost like you could drive it a little bit off-road, even though it clearly is not an off-road vehicle. It has a little knob to put it into an off-road or snow mode, just like the Tiguan. But again, these things aren't off-road vehicles, let's be honest. Now, this being rental car spec, now this is 3 years old with 35,000 rental miles on it. It also features mismatched front and rear tires, which we've always been told not to do on an all-wheel drive and 4-wheel drive vehicle, but apparently rental companies are cool with that, so something to keep in mind. Now, the number 3 thing that I like about the Jeep Cherokee is that these seats are extremely soft and comfortable. It feels like there's about 6 inches of very soft padding. It's almost like sinking down into a Barcalounger in your TV room. It's a very American experience. And I don't know how they would be on a long trip. I feel like maybe they don't have enough support. But when you first initially sink into them, it's really, really soft and comfortable and pleasant. And now on to the number 4 and final thing that I like about the Jeep Cherokee is that it has a real shifter. No weird switches or touch panels or anything like that. It's a shifter that you can grab onto and pull and select a gear just like we're used to. And I think most automatic transmissions should be this way. It makes life a lot easier, and it just makes jumping into a car easier to understand. So now we're going to move on to the things that I don't like about this. Starting off, number 1 of these 7 things that I don't like is the styling. It's not offensive. It's actually not bad looking. The problem that I have with the styling is that it looks too much like the Jeep Compass, which is the model that is just below it. It's only a tiny bit smaller, the Compass. This is a larger version, and I honestly have a tough time figuring out when I see these cars on the road, is that a Compass or is that a Cherokee? There's a little bit of a difference right here in the back. I think the back is just a little bit larger around the cargo area. And yeah, it's I know that they're different vehicles and they have some things, but for me, it's very hard to tell the two apart. And I wish Jeep would have done something different. At least like the Renegade, you can tell that that's a Renegade. There's no question in your mind. The Cherokee and Compass, yeah, I even me as a car enthusiast has a tough time telling them apart. The number 2 thing that I don't particularly like about the Jeep Cherokee, at least this one, is the 2.4 liter Tigershart engine. Yes, they call it Tigershark. That might have been a Freudian slip. But anyway, this engine is noisy, it's harsh, it doesn't make much power. It's about 180 horsepower, which for a 4x4 family crossover, it's not really enough to pull it around. I mean, it's adequate, maybe just a tiny bit under the word adequate. There are 2 other engine choices on top of this for the year 2020. There was the the Pentastar V6, which made closer to 300 horsepower, and there was a 2-liter turbo engine that also made close to 300 horsepower. Both of those are a much better choice than the 2.4-liter Tigershark. The number 3 thing that I don't like about that, while we're under the hood here, is the 9-speed transmission. It's sunk down there. That is made by the company ZF. Now, that's a German-based manufacturer. They have manufacturing facilities all over the world. They produce transmissions, and I want to make sure that you don't confuse this with the ZF 8-speed transmission that is in rear-wheel drive-based vehicles such as the Ram, the Alfa Romeo, BMW uses, a lot of companies use the 8-speed. That's one of the best automatic transmissions on the market, bar none. This thing has the 9-speed, which is transverse mounted for front-wheel drive platforms. It's a small case, it has 9 different ratios, and it's just a little bit too much for such a small transmission to do. It shifts kind of harsh. It is very slow to upshift and downshift, especially when you're trying to use it in manual mode. Even in automatic mode, when you press the throttle down, it takes a long time to downshift. When you downshift it manually, it doesn't do any rev matching or anything like that, like most modern cars do. Nothing really impressive about the programming or this transmission. Moving on to the inside of the car for number 4 is the HVAC controls. Now, this being a lower trim level, it does not have automatic climate control. You just move a slider to hot or cold, and you have to tell the air where to go and set the fan speed yourself. However, Jeep buried this in the infotainment system for the most part. You have a couple of hard controls here. You have this down button and this up button, red, hot and cold, and a little thing will pop up on the screen and tell you if you're moving it to hot or cold. This knob changes the fan. This button here sets it to full front defrost. And that button turns on the AC, that sets it to recirc. However, if you want to do anything else, you have to go to the touch screen, press climate, and now it brings up the climate screen for if you want to move it to defrost and feet, or face it and feet, or whatever you want to do, and then you can change your fan speed, things like that, and you move the temperature up and down also this way. And then there are more controls here. You can turn on the rear defrost, which also has a setting down there. Why you just can't put 3 knobs to control everything down here and a couple buttons, which you already pretty much have down here, I don't know. This is terrible. When you're driving and you're not familiar with this car, you're like, oh man, I want to get some air on the windshield, but I want to keep it on my feet. I gotta go into the screen, and I gotta hit this, and terrible. Hate this setup. I don't know why they thought that this was a good idea. It's implemented in a lot of other Fiat Chrysler cars from this era. It makes a lot more sense when you're using an automatic climate control system where you could just set it to a temperature and it deals with the fan speed and where the air is going all on its own. That you can tolerate. It's still not the best, but this is terrible. Absolutely terrible. Why they did this, I don't know. Number 5 on my list of things that I dislike about this car is this being the low trim level. This gets an extremely small screen, and it's a little bit harder to work. If you look at the higher trim levels, I parked next to a limited trim level today at work, and that screen kind of encompasses more of this. Okay, so when you plug in CarPlay, it's tiny. Here's my hand next to it. CarPlay works a whole lot better, I've found, on a larger screen. And this, I'm thankful that it has. Don't get me wrong, I'm thankful that it has CarPlay. However, this small screen kind of stinks, and obviously they're trying to incentivize you to move up to a higher, move up to a higher trim level by putting a larger screen in. I can't see a bigger screen costing that much more and justifiable. This seems like just a play on their end, and it's still better than not having CarPlay. But bear in mind, if you're looking at one of these in a Latitude or Latitude Plus trim level, you're going to be dealing with a much smaller screen, and it works and it does everything you need to do, but it's small. All right, we're moving to the back seat for the number 6 thing that I don't like about this car, and it is how to install child seats. Now, this is something that's probably really important to people who are buying these crossovers in this size and price range, because I had a really tough time getting these car seats to be in here steady. What is kind of annoying about this, the placement of where the seat belt gets sucked in is kind of far forward on the car seat, whereas a lot of cars, this would wind up being back here. So when you're tightening the seatbelt, it pulls it back into there better. I found that I had to also use the bottom anchors to get this thing to actually finally seat and not move a lot. Like, it moved a lot, no matter how tight I made this seatbelt. So yeah, it's a really dumb design. I'm guessing because of styling, it had to do it that way. But very, very frustrating for me to figure this out on my own. The number 7 thing that I don't like about this vehicle is the absolutely wonky setup for the seatbelt for the center seat. So this is it right here. It's all the way back here at the end of the trunk or hatch cargo area. The idea is that when you're not using it, it gets sucked in there. When you are using it, you loop it through here in this awkward spot, right? And you got this belt that just kind of hangs out here all the time if you're using that seat a lot. Really, really weird, isn't it? And then you're supposed to take this and plug it into a latch that's at the bottom, and then this works as your normal seat belt. Really, really crappy. Now, bear in mind, this is a rental vehicle. It has 35,000 rental miles. It's 3 years old. So this cargo shelf is kind of collapsed under the weight of who knows what people have thrown back here. I'm not going to hold that against it, so I'm not going to make that number 8. But anyway. So in conclusion, my final take on this vehicle is that it's just okay. It's adequate. It could be a lot better. There's a lot better choices to make in this vehicle class. Mazda CX-5 would be a better choice. The Toyota RAV4 would be a better choice. Subaru Forester would probably be better. Honda CR-V would be better probably. All those would be a better choice than, quite frankly, this. These before the pandemic were really, really inexpensive to lease, but the pandemic changed everything, and so if this is the same price as its competition, there's really no reason to go with this over it. So anyway, thank you for watching. I appreciate it. Hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, and I hope to see you soon. Thank you.